It was just another Wednesday morning, or at least it was supposed to be. I was sitting at my desk, headphones on, in the middle of a VY tool strategy session with our grid reliability team. My camera was off, but my mind was fully on the job, focused on thermal overload protection and all that corporate mumbo-jumbo. My coffee was sitting there next to me, slowly cooling, while the house was blissfully quiet. My wife, Lily, had the day off from her kids' wrestling clinic, and our daughter, Sophie, was already off to school. The day was shaping up to be one of those peaceful, productive ones, nothing out of the ordinary. And then, the doorbell rang. I ignored it at first. You know how it is door-to-door salespeople, the occasional neighbor popping in, probably just someone pushing solar panels or lawn care services. I wasn't about to hit pause on a meeting for that. But then it rang again. And then came the knock. And then the bang, a loud, assertive thud that shook me out of my focus. Now, I don't know about you, but when someone bangs on your door that aggressively, it's never good news. I muted my mic, took off my headphones, and checked the feed from our doorbell camera. There were two guys standing there, khakis and button-down shirts, tactical vests with some ridiculous HOA inspection unit patch stitched across the chest. One of them even had mirrored sunglasses, the kind you'd expect from a wannabe DEA agent. At that point, I was already pissed. This wasn't some regular sales guy or a delivery driver. Something about these guys felt off. I muttered under my breath and headed downstairs to check it out. But before I even got to the door, I heard the unmistakable sound of the deadbolt unlocking. Lily had already opened the door. "Can I help you?" she asked, calm as ever, arms crossed in that way she does when she's about to handle business. "We're with the Community Standards DVY Shown," one of them said, puffing out his chest like he was important. "We're conducting a routine inspection of your property today." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Routine for who?" she shot back, already sizing them up. "The HOA," the second guy said. He had a buzz cut and a gut that looked like he hadn't chased anything other than donuts in years. "We need to do a walk-through landscaping, facade maintenance, storage." And right there, Lily cut him off. "This house isn't part of the HOA." His smile faltered. "Excuse me." "Never has been," she said, still standing firm. "Check your maps." There was a pause, a smirk from the VY glasses guy, like he was dismissing her. "That's a common misconception," he said. "Properties in this sector fall under extended jurisdiction. Voluntary or not, we're authorized to conduct preliminary checks." Lily didn't flinch. "You are absolutely not," she replied, still cool, still calm. "This land's been in my family since before your cookie-cutter neighborhood even existed." She stared at him for a second, arms still crossed. "You've got 30 seconds to leave." And then it happened. The officer stepped forward, trying to play it cool, like he was just doing his job. He opened the gate, took a step up onto the porch. And that was his mistake. Lily didn't move. She just watched him. I swear, it felt like the air in the yard thickened. He crossed an invisible line, the one most people feel when they're on someone else's property, but he was too dense to notice it. "You should know," he said, grinning like he had the upper hand. "If you don't open the door, we have authority to initiate forced access." And that's when Lily made her move. She didn't shout, didn't even flinch. She just moved, swift and precise. One arm hooked around his, the other gripped his vest, and before he could even blink, he was flat on the concrete. His arm twisted behind his back in a way that made him grunt. Lily had him pinned, kneeling on his spine like she was making sure he understood exactly who was in control. I watched all this go down, heart racing, but Lily? She was as calm as a Sunday morning. She pulled out her phone and dialed the cops like she was ordering lunch. "Hello," she said, voice as steady as ever. "This is Lily Henderson. I need the police at this address immediately. A man attempted to force his way into my home and made physical contact. I've detained him." She gave the details like it was just another day. And the guy AVY started squirming beneath her, groaning and trying to wriggle free, but Lily adjusted her weight just enough to remind him that he wasn't going anywhere. I opened the front door, barefoot, headset still hanging around my neck. "Everything okay out here?" I asked, just as calm as she was. Lily didn't even look up. "This man says he's with the HOA. He touched me. I handled it." I looked down at the guy on the ground, smirking. "Looks like you did." I turned to the other guy. "Buddy, I hope you've got good insurance." The second guy backed away, palms up, trying to plead his case. We were just doing our job. I cut him off. No, you were trespassing on private property and threatening my wife. You're about to find out how serious of a mistake you made. Just as I was about to say more, we heard sirens in the distance. Things were about to get real. The officer who arrived was calm, professional, but you could tell he wasn't buying a VY8er guy's story for a second. Richard, turns out that was his name, started shouting about how my wife had assaulted an officer. The officer just raised an eyebrow and said, "You're not an officer. You're not even licensed security. You laid hands on her first." Richard sputtered about citizen enforcement rights, but the cop wasn't VYing it. He asked for IDs, and I handed over mine, the deed to the property, just in case. Savannah showed him the VY Deo from the doorbell camera, and the second officer started edging away, like he was trying to sneak off. But the cop wasn't VYing it. He called him back like he was a dog. "No one's getting arrested today," the cop said, scribbling down notes. "But Mr. Henderson, I suggest you file an official complaint. And you," he pointed at Richard, "better not step foot on this property again." Richard muttered something about escalating to the board, which told me this wasn't the end. But I was already planning my next move. The very next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was all just the beginning. A thick envelope showed up in our mailbox, no postage, just hand-delivered. "Notice of violation," it screamed in big red letters, with a list of ridiculous accusations: unregistered play equipment, unauthorized window fixtures, improperly stored trash bins. The kind of nonsense that only a bored HOA would make up. But tucked inside that envelope was something that sent a chill down my spine. Grainy photos of Sophie playing in the yard. Someone had been watching us taking pictures of my daughter without permission. That night, when Sophie came home, she was unusually quiet. At dinner, she pushed her food around on her plate, barely saying a word. Finally, as I tucked her in, she whispered, "Dad, kids are saying I live in a trash house. That my mom got arrested." I froze. "Who told them that?" She shrugged, looking down. "Lena, her mom's in the committee." I kissed her forehead gently. "Your mom's a hero, Elle. And this house? It's ours. We're going to keep it that way." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I dug through every email and letter we'd received since MOVYing back into my parents' house. Nothing ever mentioned HOA jurisdiction, because there wasn't any. But the next day, things escalated further. I sent an open records request to the county, demanding jurisdictional maps and deed records for our neighborhood. I also reached out to a lawyer I found through a veterans network. This was bigger than just a few fines. We were dealing with fraud. 2 days later, an email came through, an anonymous tip. They were trying to absorb our house by proxy. They were pushing boundary extensions through assumed consent. My blood ran cold. And that's when everything changed. We started fighting back hard. Every letter they sent, every violation, every attempt to intimidate use it just made us stronger. When I found out about their forged documents, their shady internal communications, we had no choice but to go to war. But it wasn't just about us anymore. We gathered stories from neighbors who'd been harassed too. The Allens, who'd been fined for putting up a veteran's flag. Louise, who was threatened over the color of his garage door. We compiled everything, a proof, the witnesses, the documents, and we took them straight to our lawyer. And when Richard came back, he wasn't just stalking us, was parked across the street in an old SUV, watching us. I didn't back down. I confronted him, calmly. I knew what he was up to. "You step onto my property again, I'll have you for trespassing, harassment, and impersonating security." Things got worse before they got better. Flyers went up around the neighborhood, calling us neighborhood nuisances. Sophie came home crying. I knew it was time to hit them where it hurt. We filed a restraining order, and that wasn't the end. The HOA kept escalating. But I was ready. And soon, so were they. We filed the lawsuit. We fought back. And in the end, the HOA lost. They were found guilty of conspiracy, fraud, and stalking. The judge ordered the dissolution of their organization and slapped them with fines. But the best part? The judge issued a permanent injunction, making sure no HOA past or future could ever claim jurisdiction over our property again. We weren't just fighting for a house. We were fighting for our freedom. And we won. But that wasn't the end. 2 weeks after the verdict, the whole neighborhood was different. People who once kept their heads down, who accepted the fines and the rules without question, well, they weren't taking it anymore. They started fighting back too. And just like that, we'd turn the tables. So, here's the question: have you ever had to stand your ground? What would you have done in our shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about standing up to the system.